Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and today we're going to talk about not being afraid to go after what you want in life. It's so easy to lose track of things we love and dreams we once had. We often get caught up in the busyness of day-to-day life, forget who we wanted to be and the things we love to do. But my guest and I are here today to remind you that it's never too late to reconnect with your true self, to find your passions again, and to live the life you used to dream of. With me for this conversation is author, blogger, and speaker Yvonne Vincent. In 2018, Yvonne started a blog on Facebook called Growing Old Disgracefully. It's a light and witty take on midlife, and though she's very thankful for her male followers, the blog is aimed predominantly at women over 40. Yvonne's blog very quickly grew a following. In fact, in 2020, encouraged by the readers of her blog and dealing with a complete COVID lockdown, Yvonne wrote her first book called The Big Blue Jobby, a heartwarming and humorous account of family life during lockdown. Yvonne expected to sell just a few copies and then have it fade away, but that isn't exactly how it played out. Her first book quickly rose in popularity and rank on the charts, so she did what any good writer would do, and she wrote more books. Losers Club Murder Mystery Series was born. And a few short years later in 2023, Yvonne was able to take a deep breath and walk away from her nice, safe job to write full-time, and now she has a message that she's very passionate about sharing. Yvonne, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks. It's lovely to be here.
I'd love to get started if you could share with us a little bit about how you launched into this brand new career in your 50s and how that sort of happened. What happened to prompt this all to take place?
Well, I think that I sort of always think of it as almost a sliding doors moment. You know, when I published that first book, encouraged by my blog followers, I had zero self-belief. I really didn't think this was going to go anywhere. But when I published that, that was my sort of sliding doors moment. Do you know the film with Gwyneth Paltrow where it shows her taking two different paths in life? It's called Sliding Doors. Now, I'm not nearly as attractive as Gwyneth, but that was my sliding doors moment. So just going on with my books, it was 2022 that changed my mindset a lot. I had huge support from my online following from my blog, but I also had my family and friends supporting me as well, which was great. But I went on a career development course for women, and it was a year-long program. It was absolutely fantastic. But on day one, they said, come in with an idea of where you want to be, what you want to do. So I was in my head, I was like, promotion, that'll see me through to the pension. One more promotion, I'll be happy with that. We got there and they did this visualization exercise on day one, and you had to visualize where you were. And I wasn't promoted. I wasn't away having my pension in 5 years' time or any of those things. I was off writing on a beach in the south of France. So I realized that actually all the things that this whole development program was geared up for, none of them were for me. And I really tried to fit in. I tried to make it fit, but it didn't. But one of the things, there were a few really good things on that program, but one of the things they said to me was exercise your want muscle, which essentially means you are entitled to want things. You don't have to feel apologetic for wanting something. Just want it and say that you want it. I was right, well, I don't want to do this job anymore. I want to go and be a writer. That's what I want. But it did actually give me courage. It really did. And then my husband and I went to an authors conference in June 22. And there were people on stage who were talking about how successful they were and how they'd been able to give up the day job. And my husband said to me, well, I reckon that you could pack in your job by Christmas. I said, really? And he said, yes. Now, my husband, he's got short arms and deep pockets, right? He is quite money
Focused.
aware,
Yeah.
focused, yep. And it is really unlike him to take a risk like me just walking away from my job. So I think that gave me an idea of how much faith he had in me, how much belief. And it sort of permeated through to me that I really need to start believing in me too.
Mm.
All these other people do, I need to do it as well. And so 6 months later, well, 5 months later, I applied for a career break because I wasn't quite brave enough to just pack it in for good.
No big
Needed,
jump.
yeah, needed to hedge my bets a little bit, but I was off. And really, I didn't even do the whole year of a career break. And I just said, I've got to be fair to work here. I've got to tell them I'm not coming back. I know I'm not coming back. So October last year, I resigned fully. So yeah, big jump.
So, one of the things that I'm curious about is I believe you've said that in your very younger years, you used to love to write poems
Oh
and to
yeah.
write stories, and then it sort of got put on the back burner, like
Mm.
many of us. Life gets in the way, right? So, I'm really curious about when you're in that seminar and you're asked to kind of see yourself in the future and you're picturing yourself on a beach as a writer, what got you there? Because it had been lost for all those years. What do
Yeah.
you know? Did it
Oh.
start bubbling up for you, or did you start sort of having a calling back to it?
No, it was the blog really. In 2018, loads of my friends were encouraging me to start a blog on Facebook. They kept saying, "Oh, your Facebook posts are hilarious. You need to go and put these out to the world." And I thought about it for months because I will be absolutely honest, it did not sit well with me. It made me feel so uncomfortable. Until 2018, there was no trace of me on Google. You I was just, I would obsessively hide myself from the internet. Now it's the opposite, and I don't have any choice about that. It goes with it, goes with the job now, doesn't it? But
Right.
until 2018, I was a very, very private person. So the whole thing did not sit comfortably with me. So at the tender age of 48, I woke up one morning and told myself to get over myself. And I lay in bed. So I was actually lying in bed and I just Googled how to set up a Facebook page, a Facebook blog. And so I didn't know what to call it or anything, hadn't thought any of it through. So I thought, I'll call it Growing Old Disgracefully and that'll do. And I posted and then I sent invites to all my friends so that hopefully they would follow me and I'd start getting some followers. And so as I was doing the blog, I just rediscovered how much I enjoyed writing.
Yeah.
And the posts that I love the best are the ones where I've got the time to actually sit down and think through and tell the story of my day,
Yeah.
because it's all about laughing at life, really. That's what the blog's about.
Yeah.
And it's just lovely to sit down and tell people a story of what's happened in my day, something utterly ridiculous.
Relatable, though, right? Relatable. People can relate because I see it.
It's real, yeah. It's things that do happen and they happen to other people too.
Yeah.
And very often nobody tells anyone. You'd probably be too embarrassed to tell anyone that you fell out of the changing room and managed to flash the aqua aerobics class. But these things happen.
Right.
So,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
I have plenty of my stories where I've tripped over my own feet. And yes, those things things happen.
But you do, you make an idiot of yourself continually in life, but a little bit of your brain blocks it out. However, I just go on Facebook and tell everybody.
Most of us don't want to put it on a billboard, for sure. For sure.
But I absolutely love writing that blog. And so, yeah, that kind of reignited that passion
Yeah.
for writing. But I have to say, if it hadn't been for everyone just saying, please put all this stuff into a book, please, 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 I probably never would have. And that act of writing the book threw me massively outside my comfort zone as well. In fact, I'm not entirely sure I've been in my comfort zone since 2018.
Well, let's pause there for a minute, right? Because that's been one of my continuous messages. And I will say I feel that way as well. And those that listen often know that. But my message, and I think it's, partially the same message you want to put out there, is that's where the goodness is. Like, dream it and try it and go back and reconnect with those things, because you can do whatever it is you want. You just have to be brave enough to step into it.
Yeah, I think pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, it does feel, well, uncomfortable, obviously,
Yes.
but when you do it and you achieve something, then afterwards you just get a real buzz of achievement, of success.
Yeah.
It makes the success 10 times better. And I think the other thing about it is that every time you do it, it makes you that tiny bit braver for the next time. So if you think back to when we were in our teens and our 20s, we were perpetually outside our comfort zone. We were continually going new places, doing new things, applying for jobs, and we were just battling the world, but we didn't care. We just went ahead and did it anyway. And then I think you kind of get into your career, your little rut, your happy place. You perhaps have children, or you've got all your life settles down and all these things. And then you get to your 50s and you've got the last sort of 2 or 3 decades of being in your comfort zone. You've completely forgotten what it's like.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a little bit brilliant to be outside your comfort zone. It can be a little bit scary, but every time you do something new, it just makes you that bit braver, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but for me, I feel like as you do that and you push through, I think there's a sense of fulfillment. And maybe that was missing for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's this fullness or this sense of alignment.
It's your mojo, isn't it? You get your mojo back.
Yeah. You get your mojo back. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. You touched on it, but I want to go back. When we talked and connected, you kind of kept going back to this topic, and I think it's important for folks. You have this group of women that support you. You talk about how your husband, he knew and had confidence in you before you had it in yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for everybody to recognize that they really need some core supporters, whatever it is they're doing.
Yes.
Talk to us about that, how they played a role and still play a role when you write a new book, etc.
Yeah, I think I've been really fortunate. I've made a lot of friends along the way, and so I've got a lovely mix of a group. We call ourselves the Angels, and they're a group of friends who come from all over and different parts of my life, and they're absolutely fantastically supportive, and I really, really appreciate that. There are so many people in my life that weren't in my life 6 years ago as well, who cheer me on. Family, obviously, and the people who read my blog are fantastic. And I kind of think of them as my cheerleaders. And it's the importance, I suppose, of building your own cheerleading squad to keep you going, so that if you're down, they're not judging you. They're not saying, oh, you're just looking for a bit of attention because you're feeling a bit meh. They're come on, get back up on your feet. You can do it. And they're there behind you, pushing you all the time, telling you that you can. And it does make such a difference, because I found that as I got older, my self-belief kind of faded a bit. My confidence faded a bit.
Yeah.
I think it's natural. It's happens to us sometimes during the menopause
Yeah.
and the perimenopause. And I found myself getting anxious about things, and I'd never been an anxious person. So having people behind me cheering me on helped me build a little bit of brio and confidence to go out and do the kind of battles that I probably wouldn't have thought twice about in my 20s.
Yeah, you can kind of borrow their confidence to push you through when you can't get to
Yeah.
your own until yours shows up.
I've always had this thing in my head that if enough people tell you something, then you have to listen.
Yeah.
You have to consider that they might be right.
Yeah.
So when enough people are telling me you can do this, you can write, your writing is good enough, you're good enough. If enough people are telling me that, then I do have to listen. So it's not just about me believing in myself,
Yeah.
it's me believing them too.
Hmm. I also think that the best case is that those cheerleaders that hold you up are also people that you can really count on to hold you accountable and to be honest with you,
Hmm.
because you don't want people that are going to just, yes you to death or pepper you with empty compliments,
Yeah.
just flatter over you or fawn over
Mm.
you. You want people that provide that confidence and that push for you,
Yes.
but they're also going to call you out on your BS when you're, not showing up
Yeah.
the right, I don't
Yeah.
want to say the right way, but, not showing up how you should be. So I think that's
Mm.
important as well.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, it is really important. And the group of angels who they beta read my books for me. So they're always the first people. And I do always say to them, be brutally honest.
Yeah.
Tell me if it's rubbish because I'd rather know it's rubbish.
From you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've got people like my sister. My sister will always be straight up with me as well. And so will my husband. And goodness me, my kids will.
Well, of course there's that. Of course they will.
I used to say to them when they were younger, I'd say, "Listen, I'm a social media influencer. You can't talk to me like that." They were
That
they
is
were
hysterical.
mortified. They were mortified that their friends followed me on Facebook.
Wait, I've heard you tell me if this is true, that you've called yourself the social media influencer. Is that true?
Yes, yes. I don't think I think I'm a bad influence, so I'm probably an influencer rather than an influencer.
Oh man, I love this.
Oh,
I want to talk a little bit. You touched on it, but I want to go back to it for a minute. So, again, you're back in this seminar that you got through work, thankfully. And though the whole thing didn't work out, you did learn a lot from it. And you talked about them giving you, I'll say, permission to exercise your want muscle.
mhm.
That's sometimes hard for us as women. How would you encourage people to think about that and to really try to
Mm.
make that a stronger capability if they don't today?
Well, I think that a really easy first step is to stop apologizing for everything.
Yeah.
You are entitled to want somebody's time and attention if you need to discuss something with them. So I think that a really good first step in getting or being brave enough to say I want is to not say, sorry, are you busy? Or any of those things, just to simply say, I need 5 minutes of your time to discuss such and such. If you're not free, please tell me when you will be free. And I think just stop apologizing, stop saying, sorry, can I just, and sorry, would you mind? I don't know, maybe that's a very British thing. I don't know, but I suspect it's not.
It's not.
But I
It's
think it
not.
is a very female thing.
Yes.
I don't think from my working life, I don't think I saw many emails from men saying, sorry, would you mind?
Yeah. That's valid. That is
So yeah,
valid.
yeah. But I think that exercising your want muscle means, and it's not my phrase, it came from that course, but it means really feeling entitled to want things. And you are entitled to want things. It is
Mm.
not wrong to want things. And if you can kind of get your head round that,
Yeah.
then hopefully you're far clearer about what you do want and you're far more capable of getting it.
Yeah.
I think it boosts your confidence to know that you can want and you can get.
And you can do. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that makes
It
sense.
does make sense. It does make sense. I do agree it's very challenging for us to do that. I think it's the same reason we often put self care last, because that would be assuming that we are worthy of our own time. And
Hmm.
that would say that our needs take a priority, or our needs, there's space for our needs. And I think we often train ourselves to do the opposite. So I think everybody will be able to relate to that. That's good advice. I'm curious. You have, I think, a fairly large following in Facebook.
Mm.
I think that you have a lot of interaction. I can see that you're in there, you're talking to people, you're reading their comments.
Oh, yeah.
What surprises you the most?
Oh, gosh. I tell you, one thing that surprised me today and absolutely delighted me today is when I posted some of what we're talking about here, but only touching on it on the surface. And a lady who was in her 80s said, I'm going to go and do something new. You've inspired me. I'm going to go and do something. And I thought, oh, it's that kind of thing. You know,
Yeah.
you've touched somebody's life. You've made somebody's life that tiny bit different. And I think that that always surprises me. I get quite a few people coming and saying, thanks for making me laugh. I really needed that today. And I always think to myself, if I shuffle off this mortal coil, the thing that I've left behind me is that I made a difference to one person. Whoever else, whatever else I did in my life, I've made a difference to that person. And it's always just makes me feel better about myself, obviously, that I've done something positive, put something positive out into the world. But it does surprise me when you get so many lovely, lovely people coming on and saying such great things. And I have to mention here as well that sometimes there's two people, one of them lives in the UK, two ladies, one of them lives in America, and the two of them, they've never met. They only know each other through my blog, but the two of them will sit and they'll have a full-on conversation in the comments section. And I think, how lovely is that? These two, I think they're both, I think, in their 70s. They've never met, but they've been brought together from across the world, and they're friends. And isn't that marvelous?
I love that. Well, I think the other thing you and I have in common is that we agree that community connection is so important. And
Yes.
it's one of the things that your blog gives to people, your Facebook page gives to people. I will say I was happily surprised and a little in awe of the engagement level you do have. People are exactly what you just said. I mean, people are really having full on conversations and replying back to your hysterical posts. But I just think that's a sentiment to you, but also that we all just want community. We all just want connection, validation. And I think you're giving that to whoever's out there for you. So I say kudos to you for that. It's fantastic.
Mhm.
I want to make sure we give a few minutes to talk, not to just, but to talking about your books.
Thank you.
I think that the writing you've put out into the world would be loved by lots of different types of people, because you have the blog, which, yes, it's targeted towards midlife women, but it's pretty hysterical. So I think anybody can enjoy it. And then you have your first book, The Big Blue Jobby, which anyone that went through lockdown can probably appreciate what you bring there. It's all the things we think or we say to ourselves. Don't necessarily say in front of everybody. Like there was a point where you were talking about your husband and, it was about how you are in isolation, thinking that, I'm paraphrasing, this is all my words, but sort of the sentiment was, well, good, I'll get some time away from him or whatever, and I can kind of do my own thing. But shortly after, you're missing that. You're missing the normal craziness that long marriages have, right? And it's just, you're making fun of it and it's hysterical. And I think people can really relate to that. And then you got the mystery series over here. So I think there's something out there for everyone. Do you have a favorite?
I am really fond of Losers Club, the murder mystery series. The characters, they're like family. every time I go back and write another one, and I'm currently writing the eighth one, it's like putting on a pair of comfy old slippers. They're just so gorgeous and quirky, and I absolutely love them. And they're all so very different too. There are some in there that are slightly more sensible, thank goodness. Taking them places. It's mainly set on a Scottish island. It's not a real island because I knew I was going to be writing slightly sort of chaotic, quirky community, and some of it is based on the community that I grew up in Scotland, but I didn't want anywhere identifiable, and I certainly didn't want anyone to think that I was writing about them. The characters aren't based on real people, they're more based on a sort of an amalgamation of things I've observed. But I absolutely love the losers, I really do. And there's a whole Facebook fan group for it, which is just fantastic. And I love the fact that other people love them too. Now, they're a little bit sweary, so they're not for everyone because there is the odd F-bomb in there. But I really wanted to reflect how people talk in Scotland.
Yes,
In
I'm sure.
Scotland, they do, they swear. And it's kind of shocking sometimes to people when they do go to Scotland and they hear a lot more swearing than they're perhaps used to. And I just thought, no, I'm going to make my books how people actually talk. Now, it's not every second word or anything, so if that puts people off, I'm sorry about that, but it is what it is, really. I wanted it to reflect where I grew up, how I grew up.
Yeah.
And it pretty much does. And some of the anecdotes in there, which I won't repeat here, but they are based on things that happened when I was a kid. So yeah.
I like to hear that. And I'm glad you decided to just go with what you
Yeah.
felt more authentic, because I think you show up that way. And I think it's great that your books can show up that way for you. So you can they stay true to who you are as an author. I want to come back to sort of this venturing out into a new career in your 50s.
Yeah.
And it's all a little surreal, I think, when that happens, I'm sure. I know you said to me, I'm just still me, but like there's all this stuff going on
Yeah,
around
it's
you.
weird.
And
Yeah.
right? So, well, I think that's okay. And I think that's okay for people to hear, right? The real you says it's sort of weird. It's hard to wrap your head around, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You just did with what you loved, and the words just came to page, and suddenly everybody wants to know what you have to say. And I think fantastic. And it's a sentiment to what you put out into the world, but I can imagine how it feels as well.
Yeah, I've spent 50 years being nobody. So, and it sort of really is very strange when you find yourself in your 50s and you're doing things like negotiating contracts, doing Zooms with movie producers, and talking to agents, and it just is absolutely bizarre. Doing selfies with people, being recognized. It is a very, very, very strange experience because I've spent 50 years being absolutely nobody. And I'm still really, it's not like I'm famous or anything like that. But
Famous, yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
Angelina Jolie just kind of like strolling down the street going, yeah, have a selfie with me. But I kind of have a wee bit of notoriety, and it is like so unexpected and so strange. And I'm still me. I still buy my bras from Marks and Spencer. I still
We don't have that, but I imagine it's like a department store or something.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a department store. It's a very a sort of long-standing department store in the UK. I haven't changed. I still do exactly the same things, still like the same things, still go to Asda or that's your Walmart, I think.
Yeah.
Do my shopping and buy cheap clothes because I'm losing weight, so I'm shrinking out of them all at the moment.
Well, lots to unpack there, but I just love that that's how you show up, and that I think people can read that, and I think people can connect to that, and certainly enjoy seeing somebody get what they deserve and be able to find this new dream come to life and still stay stay true to who they were. So again, kudos to you. As far as losing weight, kudos to you on that too, because I know how hard that is. That's another one of those things that's a never-ending process, right?
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
A whole other conversation indeed. If there was anything you wanted to leave with the audience, I know that you're really starting to try to get out there and not necessarily be out to promote the books, though obviously you have a different track for that, but you have this message about people really being willing to try something new and push past the boundaries and feel that they can have the confidence to want what they want. I mean, is there anything else or anything you want to say and leave the audience with? I want to give you a minute to do that.
Yeah, I think that, well, it's really what I've just said. It's about getting outside your comfort zone and accepting that you can do that and succeed. It's about being brave enough to say you want something. And it's about building your own cheerleading squad, the people who are behind you, the important people in your life, and leaning on them a little bit and accepting what they say, hearing the people who are telling you that you can do something. And ultimately, it's about deciding that you can and just going for it. Somebody asked me, how did it feel? It must have felt so scary just walking away from my comfortable job. And yes, it really did. I was like, what if I fail? What if I fail? And then I thought, well, what is the worst that could happen? I go and get another job.
Yeah.
It doesn't ultimately really matter in the grand scheme of things, but at least I'll have tried it. At least I'll have given it a go.
I love that you brought that up because I think we often go to the worst case scenario, but I think sometimes if we're truly honest with ourselves, the worst case scenario isn't really as dramatic as we make it to be. Because to your point, what really is the worst? The worst would have been you write something and it's awful and it doesn't go anywhere and you get a job. Okay. Life just continues on really at that point, right? But I think we sometimes let ourselves go down these rabbit holes, right? And picture all these crazy things. So I think it's important to really talk yourself through that. What's the worst that could really happen? And I think the other thing is to learn to flip it. What if it does work out? What does that look like? Right? This is what it looks like when it does work out. Right? You're living your dream. I mean, and who knows? It's just starting. There's so much more to come.
Yeah.
But because you are willing to step out of your comfort zone, you're living your dream.
Well, I am at the moment. Next
we're going to continue to hope.
In a supermarket, but
Stop.
I'm teasing. But yes, I am.
I love it.
And I really, really want the women, the older women especially out there, to know that whatever age you are, value yourself. It's really important. You have value. It doesn't matter whether you are 50, 100, or 30. You have value. Don't say to yourself, I am too old. Please don't say that. I'm too old to start something new. I'm too old to do this. Because you're undervaluing yourself. That was kind of one final thing that I did want to say.
That's a great message to leave everybody with. I would like to remind folks that I will put all of your links in the show notes, links to the book, to the blog, on the Facebook page, etc. So I would ask everybody, please go check her work out. It's fantastic. I think you guys will get a kick out of it. And yeah, thanks so much for coming and sharing with us your experiences, this second phase of your life, and all of what that looks like. It's very inspirational. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Message in the Middle with Marianne. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a minute to share it and write a review as it helps bring new listeners to our audience. If you'd like to keep the conversation going between episodes, please join us at Facebook group Message in the Middle with Marianne.